Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I am your host, LJ Walker. So let's talk about Dr. Umar. Some of you who may know him, you know that recently he got on Instagram saying that his bank accounts were frozen because fraud was committed against him, and he was asking for donations to keep him afloat. Now, for those of you who don't know who Dr. Umar is, let me just say that he is a Black liberation psychiatrist or psychologist who wants to build a school to help Black boys in their academic achievements. Now, I'm going to say this, positive words. I have admired his assessments of what's been going on within the Black community, and I do agree that a school such as this is needed. However, after taking into account everything that has been transpired, because listen, he has been raising money for 15 years. Okay, he has been asking for donations for the school for a very, very long time. And it makes one wonder, and many out there are been saying, hey, is this a con? Or is he just bad with money? Or honestly, it could be both. It really could. Now, I have to admit, I never donated to the project because, yes, I agree with the idea, but the idea, in my opinion, never came with a good plan. Or a thought out plan was never presented. So that's one of the reasons why I was hesitant as far as making any donations towards his particular cause. Okay? Now, there have been other things recently that have also caused me to question his intentions. One, banks normally don't just freeze your account because they see fraud being committed. What they do is, because this has happened to me, if they notice something suspicious, they'll call you on the phone. They may even text you and say, are you aware or have you pulled money from your account at this particular location at this particular time? You say yes or no. If you say no, then what they normally do is shut down your account, reopen another account, and they'll give you, the new account number, etc. Sometimes they'll even ask for you to physically, depending on what bank you use, physically to appear with photo ID to prove that you are who you say you are. Okay, but they normally just don't freeze the account just like that, especially for an indefinite period of time, even if fraud was committed against you. Now, when they do freeze it, they normally freeze it because the courts have directed them to freeze your account. That's when I know that banks do that. But hey, I've never worked inside of a bank like in that capacity. So if you have and I'm wrong, just let me know in the comment section. Excuse me. All right. So the other thing that he mentioned that caused me to question his managing of the money is the fact that he said he only has one account. And then he continued to say he has one account for himself, personal, and then he has one account for the school that he's building. Later on, he mentioned, well, not in that same video, but in past videos, that he was able to accumulate at least $1 million. I believe he probably accumulated more than that. But here's the thing. You don't keep $1 million in one bank account because the FDIC only insures up to $150,000. What if something happens to the bank? What if the bank, for whatever reason goes out of business, and we have seen that in the past, then that means that out of that 1 million, he would only get 150,000 back. That's why when you have $1 million, you need to have it in more than one account, and preferably at more than one bank. So for me, that's a red flag. Okay. Then here's the other thing. He said he didn't want to take any money from the bank, yet he's storing his money in the bank. That to me is a little off. You know, if you want to be truly independent, in my opinion, then you would store it somewhere else. You wouldn't store it in a bank. And also, I will say this, I don't believe he has it in a black bank. Since he is so pro-black, right? He's a Pan-Africanism, and he supposedly supports black businesses. I have to question, why is it that it's not there? You understand what I'm saying? Because he mentioned that this bank that he had the accounts at was a bank that he's been using since he was 14 years old. Which also causes me to question, because if you've been at a bank or any company for a certain length of time, you are a treasured customer, and they're not going to just treat you any old kind of way normally. Because at the end of the day, it's not black and white, it's green. Okay? And they know that if you feel mistreated, you'll pull your money out and go to another bank. Let's not act like there's only one bank in the world, much less the United States of America. And speaking of which, he mentioned that he just came back from South Africa from a speaking engagement. Typically, when you have a speaking engagement, you get paid. Now, back in the 90s, many speakers were making $10,000 for their appearances. I know of a woman that was on Clubhouse who was getting $60,000 just to host a room for a day. And sometimes not even the whole day, just for a few hours. And she was getting paid like that. And her name is not as well known as Dr. Umar. So what gives here? This is where things, like I said, doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, you just got paid from your speaking engagement. Where did that money go? That's the question that I'm asking that I haven't heard anybody else bring up. Okay. Now, the other thing is that he has books. And I know that, books don't necessarily sell that widely, but for a person like him who has over 1 million followers on one platform, 200,000 followers on another platform, besides the school, you mean to tell me that he's not making any money off of the books? And then also off of the appearances when he gives speeches and talks? I don't know if he's managing this or he has someone else managing him, but that needs to be evaluated. And something else needs to change here, because there's just no way, even myself, I am a small YouTuber. I'm small across all social media platforms. I am one of the struggle bus communities that he talks about. But yet, even though I'm on the struggle bus when it comes to getting views, when it comes to comments, likes, and shares and things like that, guess what? I get people who actually want to invest with me. As a matter of fact, when I was on Clubhouse, there was a lady, me and her were in the same room for about 2 years. I came to Atlanta, asked her, you know what, does she want to hang out? I had to go down there for business. You already know I already had 2 houses. At that time, I had 2 houses. Now I'm only down to 1. The other one sold. Anyway, she knows grants, where I could get grants. She knows where she knows a lot of founders, and she knows a lot of investment bankers, all of whom are Black. And yes, I was offered money from these people, and I don't even have 1,000 subscribers. He has 1 million on one and 200,000 on another. And you mean to tell me with that? He also mentioned he gets 670 million viewers a month on his videos. I'm pretty sure there was a Black investment banker, there was a Black founder, there were Black groups that give out grants that have seen him and have heard him. You mean to tell me they never gave him any money? They never invested with him? And if that is the case, that brings me to wonder, well, why is that? Why is it that they're willing to invest with me? And I know I'm not the only one. Small YouTuber, small Instagram, small everything, who has been offered money, and by legitimate people, and he hasn't. Something is definitely off. Okay. The other thing is, I did see where he was interviewed by a celebrity, Lord Jamal to be particular. And Lord Jamal's, I believe it's his father or father-in-law, already had a school, and he offered his help and assistance. Dr. Umar rejected it. This was 4 years ago. And the school is still not finished. The doors of the school is still not open. See, that to me is a red flag. It's not necessarily a red flag for being a con, but it's definitely a red flag for something is suspicious. The fact that he's been at this at that time, because it's 15 years in total now, so that would be 11 years, and you don't want to follow the blueprint that was done by someone else, that, by the way, does not have the following that you do. That's not good business. Every business person should have a mentor. And when someone is offering you mentorship, you should take it. And the fact that he didn't, that's suspicious. The other thing is this. I found out he had 2 wives. I know I'm late. So you mean to tell me you have 2 wives and they didn't save up any money somewhere? And normally wives, well, not all wives, but I'm assuming the type of women that he would have chosen would have been women that would have been able to take what he had and multiply it. The fact that they weren't, it's 3 of you, and between the 3 of you, there's no money whatsoever, and you guys have to ask for a donation, that is suspicious to me. Okay? The other thing that was brought up that I also found strange was that when he mentioned that the property was vandalized, he said that some kids did it. Well, how do you know kids did it when you don't have cameras on your building? And by the way, if that's the case, the insurance should have covered it. So you mean to tell me that you have no insurance on a building that you've owned 15 years? Guys, let me tell you, that is very dangerous, because the building could catch on fire. There could be a flood. You know, all kinds of things could have happened. And without insurance, that's a problem. That's why he keeps coming back and saying donations. I don't think that this guy is a good business person at all. I really don't. And I hate to say it because I want this to happen. It needs to happen. We need to have schools like this that he's proposing in every single state, not just in Wilmington, Delaware, which is where it's at right now. And listen, it does not take, for 4 buildings, it does not take 15 years to fix it. Even with, I'll tell you my situation. I did gut rehabs where the properties were worse than what he had. They were smaller, but they were worse. It took a year because I was conned so many times. I know that he mentioned that he was conned. It still shouldn't take 15 years. Something is definitely not right, and he needs to stand accountable for what's going on instead of saying everybody is a hater. Everybody that's criticizing you, Dr. Umar, is not a hater. People want answers that make sense. Okay? And it's okay to say, hey, I'm good at being a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, but I am not good with making money. Comes a point where you have to admit that to yourself. And it comes to a point where, listen, you need to go out, look, seek, and hire people for those particular positions. Okay? Now, what else did I want to mention? Credit. All businesses need credit. As a matter of fact, somebody who does work in the bank told me that in order to leave your job, before you leave your job, you should have 5 credit cards in your business name. Why do you want credit? Because you want to be able to borrow that money whenever you need it, whenever you are in dire straits. And since right now he's in dire straits, especially on the personal side, he really should look at his credit cards and borrow the money from there. It baffles me that he's not even thinking to do that. Okay, so that's really what all I have to really say on this whole issue with Dr. Umar. And I'll just wrap this up and say this. A lot of times people think, oh, this person has a PhD in this, that, and the third. Just because they have a PhD in it, it's obvious that that doesn't necessarily mean that they are good with money. Is he a con? It's possible. I'm not going to come out necessarily 100% on that, but I'm leaning a lot towards that end. Okay, guys? So listen, we got to be on top of things. And even if you don't think he's a con, even if you feel that, he has good intentions, you have to look at the facts. And you have to realize, hey, the numbers are not adding up. The math is not mathing at all. And I'm telling you, you're going to be more surprised. I mentioned this in my book, that there are going to be people. I forecasted that. I'm not even a prophet. And I forecasted that there are going to be people that we look up to, that we have faith in, that's going to turn around and they're going to con us. And I hate to say it, because yes, Dr. Umar is on the money on a number of things, but all of the things that he is good at is when it comes to taking care of the boys. I never really was all that crazy about his relationships with women and his ideas on that realm. But when it comes to the educational system, I was 100% on board with his ideas. I needed to see a plan, a full thought out plan, and I never heard it. Granted, I haven't seen every single video that he's made, so to be fair, I'll take the L for that. But other than that, these are my thoughts. So guys, drop down in the comments and let me know how you feel. Feel free also to share this amongst your friends. Remember, each one reach one, teach one. Bye for now. Until next time, have a good night.